Most people in life are looking for how do I make a life worth living and a retirement worth having. I say this pretty regularly at the beginning of my Magic and Mayhem audiocasts. For many months and possibly a year, I've been talking about the mayhem that people cause. It's not rocket science to decide that when you interfere with someone's life, when you affect them negatively, there's an impact to your own life. What's sort of amazing is how people play games on people's lives. They actually think it's okay to target someone and impersonate them and violate them and put their hands on them and molest them and possibly rape them, all in the name of Jesus Christ. The religious right is losing ground today. They're losing for many reasons and many ways. The real truth is we don't have good young pastors who are speaking the truth about the world. The truth about the world is that we must learn how to create peace. And the only way to create peace is that it begins with me. There's a wonderful old song that we used to sing in junior high with the actual woman who wrote the song, which was "Let there be peace on earth." But in order to get to peace on earth, we have to have peace in our relationships. And peace in our relationships start with the ones that are the most important, perhaps to you, but also to the person that you are important to. And if you don't want to be important to someone, then by God means, don't try to be important to them. But when someone gives you a lot of time, when someone gives you a lot of grace, when someone opens their database for your life, you've sort of implied that that person is important to you. When you call them regularly, when you call them hun, when you do all sorts of fun with them and without them, it's on you. The life that you live right now is based on probably your own know-how, probably your own countenance, probably your own thinking. But what about the life you will lead when you're in your 60s or 70s or 80s? What will that be like? I talk a lot about the current life of today because I'm impacted every way and every day by people who drive by seeing me but not seeing me. People who come from poverty, who have struggled out of poverty, who know how hard it can be to live at the edge of poverty, are usually the most loving and kind to me. What I have found is marketing-wise and statistically and demographically, there is a certain subset of our communities that actually is loving and kind to me on a general sense. What I also know is that that love and kindness is short-lived. It's typically a one-off sort of situation, that or a two times help situation. The problem that people in poverty have is usually that there's someone monstrously trying to control their way out of poverty, or they want to interrogate or investigate or invigorate someone in poverty. And that doesn't really work. Each person who has God in their soul has a plan for their life. And when people who claim to be godly start to interfere with a life without thinking about the strife they're causing, it's a real problem. You see, I have a plan for my life, but the problem was that someone wanted to interfere with my plan for my life and my plan to have a new wife. And that man who has stolen the woman and the hand that I planned to marry has violated God's plan. How I know this is pretty straightforward. That when I had a vehicle, I literally would be thinking of the one I love, and every single time across 6 states, a vehicle from that state would drive in front of me with her initials on it. Even late last night, it was probably beyond midnight, I was walking in to buy some beverages, and as I walked into a dark and somewhat dimly lit gas station to pick some up, an actual vehicle drove out of the lot with a jet ski on it, which is something I'd love to have someday, with her initials on it. I am hit by this truth every single day, that when I do the body test to ask, who do I love, what I realize is that my loves are still people I love. And each of the 4 girls that I have loved still get the love test from me. But the one who gets it the most, the one that actually knocks me over, the one that gets me shoved to the front of my life, is the one that the Lord planned for me. But how do you tell someone that God planned for you to be someone's wife? How do you promote that Jesus Christ still has the miracle of life in him? And how do you manufacture a life when other people are trying to take your life from you? You see, I went into different situations looking for help for a hate crime against my life, for imposters stealing my identity, for stealing my money out of my bank account from my late father's estate. And what ended up happening was police officers stole things that my father had left me. When my father died, I didn't get a lot from his situation. And when he moved out of his home, I got very little from that throne room of his. But the few items I had, like a belt buckle that said, "May the Force be with you," and a hat that actually my son was gifted by him, and my son knew it wasn't right for him, and he gave it back to me with the Dragons, which is actually a Japanese professional baseball team, on it, was in it, along with a Harley Davidson hat that the Lord had directed me to, I think in Ohio, and other things that belonged to me were stolen by the sheriff of Indianapolis, Marion County. Now, when I tell this story, people don't like to hear the truth, that they literally steal things off people as they walk in the courthouse. They don't offer locked places for us to lock our belongings that are not allowed in the courthouse. They don't promote a sign outside that says, "Please leave this stuff in the car," or at the parking garages that are near the mall that people typically park at when they're going to court. And openly, it was probably lucky that I had to actually walk from the northern part of Indianapolis, where I was residing in Fishers at the time, all the way downtown to Indianapolis Center. Now, I would like to ask you, how many people walk like that? I have walked, actually, from my state in Indianapolis, from that downtown area to the city of Champaign. I had two helps along the way, one for roughly 20 minutes with a loving couple who drove me 20 minutes along the way of Route 36. And then during the last part of my journey, a gentleman who works at the university drove me the remaining 40 minutes. And while he was a chain smoker and a bit rough around the edges, he lovingly brought me the rest of the way. Whether he was planted to do it, whether someone put him up to it, or whether it was just God in him saying, "That guy looks like he could use a lift," I valued it, because it was then I knew where I was headed. I could have ended up in California, I could have ended up in Mexico, I could have ended up in Utah for all I know, but the Lord had a plan for me. And I believe it was because someone somewhere related to my future life said, "I want him walking in Champaign." So here I am, living my life in Champaign. But when I got here, people lied about their rights to me. They lied about their rights to touch my body. They lied about their rights to get under 3 layers of clothing to pull out my ID. They lied about what they took from me. They lied about what they did to my papers. And they mangled so many of my legal documents, it's not even funny. And as I literally sit here trying to do my work, there's some jerk across the way blasting their rights across the parking lot at me at bay, and I wonder why. Why haven't they left the gas station where I'm across from, sitting quietly doing my work? You see, in life we have moments of time to tell people they're a jerk, but that doesn't really help us to win life partners, does it? It doesn't really help us to gain a thing. What I'm learning is that people say things to the Lord and then they don't follow through. What I'm learning is that people often make promises to God that if God will deliver something, they will do something, and then they lie to God. They put themselves at odds to Jesus. And when you fail Jesus, what happens to you now is maybe nothing, but in your future life, when it's time to go home to the Lord as his wife, as we learn in the Bible, we might just miss out on what we're trying to do. What I mean is that people like to grow old gracefully without any illness, without any complications, without any problems, without walkers, without wheelchairs, but maybe God will provide his due. In life, we have moments of time to prove that we're in the house of God. And if you're in the house of God, you're promoting peace, you're promoting respect, you're promoting regard, you're promoting no games in other people's lives. But when young people today take a human life and make them into a game, when they put their hands on someone, it is lawfully molestation. When they put their hands in someone's pocket, it is a form of manipulation. And when they cut a pagan priest's beard off his face, it is a form of mutilation. Every single M word I've mentioned are a part of American law that are prosecutable by a federal prosecutor. But who cares enough about one man is not the question. Who cares enough to recognize that this one man could be you? You could be next. You could be the next victim of a game. You could be the next victim of something that's lame. You could be the next victim or target of rape. You could be the next victim because people might vape. You could be the next victim because we are not stopping the liars of the land. When we do not teach children not to lie, we have a problem. There are two types of lies, I suppose. There are things that we don't disclose, and then there are things that we use to manipulate. If you have used something to manipulate, you probably did it for financial gain or employment purposes. But if you are simply trying to protect your life and protect your wife and protect your mom and protect your family and protect your siblings from the liars of the land, then you might have to pretend to hate them. But there are people who do hate their mothers, do hate their fathers, do hate their sisters, and do hate their brothers because of what those siblings did to them. You see, when you violate someone's rights to their life, when you interfere with someone's life, when you do not show people the right regard for their life, you create a high level of strife. In life, we have moments of time to tell people what is real, tell people how we feel, and when we don't take those moments of time to put things right in the world, then you haven't done what Jesus Christ would have you do with mine. You see, when I say it like that, I'm reminding you that we all go home to Christ. Whether we believe in heaven or whether we believe in hell or whether we don't have any belief at all, the truth is you still will end up facing the walls of heaven. You still will end up being accountable for your life, and you will still have to explain to Jesus Christ why you couldn't make the time to set things right so someone else could have less stress and more of a life. In life, we have moments of time to prove who we are in the house of Jesus. And if you're a person who is a Christian, then you know what that means. If you're a Muslim, then you sort of get that we're talking about Muhammad and we're talking about Allah and we're talking about how do you prove that you're a good lover of the truth. But the truth for you is not the truth for me. And the truth for me is not the truth for you. But if you don't understand who is who, you might end up making no do. In this moment of time, I'm telling you a story. I'm telling you for God's glory that you are out of time is not true, that you have lost nothing but rhythm and rhyme. In life, there are miracles to behold, magic to be bestowed, and openly, if you don't even know what bestowing is, then how can you possibly gather who God is? You see, God can fix any human being's body. God can teach someone how to do things that seem like a hobby. God can teach someone how to lock up a computer. God can teach someone how to create a virus. God can teach someone how to do all sorts of things. But you have to be willing to listen to that small, quiet voice that speaks to you in moments of time when you don't know what to say or when your own conscience gives way to foolish behavior. In life, we have moments of time to tell people what is real, tell people how we feel, and when we don't take those moments of time, we are impacting those lives for a lifetime. My life was dramatically impacted by the most magnificent woman I've ever met in my life. Not only did I misjudge her in the first few moments of seeing her based on what she was dressed in attire at a business event, that every single time afterwards that I interacted with her, my heart would literally soar in an event. I don't have to describe who she is. I don't have to tell you who she is. I don't have to do anything like that because my job is to protect who she is. But if you've been boring on my life, if you've been stealing my rights to my telephone, if you've been fucking my records in this world, then you will go to jail, little girl. You have no rights to a man's